Today we're going to talk about the concept of work, which is actually a unit of measure in physics. So what is work? Work is when a force acts upon an object, causing that object to move. The work equation is pretty simple. Work equals force times distance. Work is always measured in joules with a capital J. Force is always measured in newtons with a capital N, and distance is always measured in meters with a lowercase m. Take a minute to jot this down and the units. Here we have our triangle for our work equation. Just like before, if I wanted to find work, I would cover up the W and see that my equation is force times distance. If I wanted to find force, I would cover up the F and see that my equation is work divided by distance. And if I want to find distance, I would cover up the D and see that my equation is work divided by force. Please make sure you have all three of these equations written down. Now let's practice solving some word problems. So a weightlifter lifts a set of weights vertical distance of 2 meters. So I'm being told here that we have a distance of 2 meters. If a constant net force of 350 newtons, so here's my force, is exerted on the weight, what is the work being done on the weights? So work, remember, is force times distance. I was told in the problem that my force is 350 newtons. My distance, according to our problem, is 2 meters. So I'm going to use the equation work equals force times distance to find my work. So work equals 350 newtons times 2 meters. So now to find W, I'm going to type in 350 and 2 times 2 into my calculator, and I get an answer of 700. Remember, the unit for work is joules with a capital J. My next problem says calculate the work done when a 47 Newton force pushes a pencil 0.5 meters across the desk. So looking at this problem, I'm trying to calculate the work. So I'm going to use my work equation. It tells me that I have a force of 47 newtons, and it's traveling a distance of 0.5 meters. So I'm trying to find work. I know that my force is 47 newtons, and the distance that that pencil travels is 0.5 meters. So once again, I'm going to use my equation work equals force times distance. So work equals 47 times 0.5. And I'm going to go ahead and type this 47 times 0.5 into my calculator, and I end up getting an answer of 23.5. And remember that my unit for work is joules with a capital J. My next problem says how much work, so once again I'm trying to find work here. Is it to lift a 196 Newton sack of potatoes up 2 meters onto the counter? So I'm trying to find work. And I remembered that the units for force is newtons. So that means I have 196 newtons of force in this problem. And my distance is 2 meters. So I'm going to use the work equals force times distance, or W equals 196 times 2. And once again, I'm going to type that 196 times 2 into my calculator. And when I type it into my calculator, I get an answer of 392 joules. Because remember, work is measured in joules. Now this one is asking how far will a 300 Newton force, so there's my force, and I read that it's how far, so this is telling me I'm trying to find distance, will move a sled 1,500 joules of work is applied. So I'm trying to find distance. So on my triangle, I'm going to cover up that D, and I'm going to see that my equation is work divided by force. Or I could look back at these notes on the front page and see that to find distance, it's work divided by force. So I'm trying to find distance here. Oh, this color doesn't work well. Let me see if I can find a color that we can see better. Alright, so I'm trying to find distance. I'm told that my work, where work is measured in joules, is 1,500 joules. And my force, remember force is measured in newtons, is 300 newtons. So I'm going to use the equation distance equals work divided by force, or distance equals 1,500 divided by 300. I'm going to type that into my calculator and find out that my distance is going to be 5 meters. Remember that distance is always measured in meters. I need to include those units every time. Now for our last problem, we're trying to find if a toy's engine does 200 joules of work, there's my work, to move a car 2 meters. It's asking how much force was applied to the car by the engine. So I'm trying to find force here. So I can use my triangle and I can cover up the force, and I can see that gives me work divided by distance. Or I can look back at these notes and know that my equation is force equals work divided by distance. So I'm trying to find force here because it asked me how much force. My work, remember work is always measured in joules, is 200 joules. And my distance is 2 meters. So I'm going to use the equation force equals work divided by distance. So force equals 200 divided by 2. I'm going to type that into my calculator, find out that my force is 100. Remember that the units for force is always newtons. Again, using those units is really important.